Building, building, building. One of the most important parts of ARK, because without building, we wouldn't have a place to call our own on these vast arcs that surround the Earth. And many of you out there are responsible for boxes. Small boxes, large boxes, all kinds of boxes. But I'm here to tell you today that you don't have to carry the burden of being a trash tier builder alone. You can change, you can improve, and I can show you how to build bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Because today I'm going to show you that you too can become a builder. Okay, that was a bit dramatic, but today I'm going to show you my top 10 ARK building tips and tricks that will take you from being a basic box builder to a much more confident and capable builder in your ARK world. And as always, if you found yourself enjoying today's video, don't forget to smash that like button, comment down below your favourite tip in today's video, and why not subscribe? It's completely free and helps me out a ton. Now without further ado, let's get on with today's video. Shape is one of the most important things in any ARK build, because without shape, we basically have nothing. A lot of players build using just one shape, usually a square, sometimes a circle. And if your entire base is built from a single shape like that, chances are it's going to look pretty uninspired. Instead, you want to start combining shapes together. Let's take this beautiful creature for example, the mighty dodo. Look at its form, its elegance. The reason it looks so magnificent is because it's made from multiple shapes. Circles, rectangles, and well, more circles. And we're going to do the exact same thing to this box right here. So focusing solely on our foundations for a moment, instead of just placing a simple square, let's add a rectangle and square. We'll begin by extending a rectangle out in the middle, and then we'll add a square off to the right. Just by doing that, we've already taken this boring one-shaped box and turned it into something far more interesting. So as you can see, we've got one square, two squares, and a rectangle in the middle. But now that the shape looks better, don't be afraid to experiment. You could try doing an L shape, maybe even an N shape. Or hey, if you're feeling adventurous, why not even an M shape? The key idea here is that combining shapes instantly makes your build more visually interesting. Let's take a look at a couple of examples from my own builds. First up, we have my all-in-one clifftop base. Doesn't it look fantastic? Well, part of the secret behind this design is simply the way the shapes are combined. We've got a large circular section with several rectangular extensions branching off from it. Individually, these shapes are very simple, but when combined together, they create a design that feels far more dynamic. Now, if we take a look at a newer build of mine, the all-in-one Gothic base, this design mostly uses squares and rectangles, but the trick is how those shapes are layered and staggered throughout the build. By offsetting sections and adding wings to the structure, it ensures that no side of the base feels plain or boring. Every angle has something interesting going on, which naturally draws in the eye. So before you even start building walls, spend a little time thinking about how you shape your foundation, because the shape will define the entire build. Tip number 2 is material variation. Now that we've got the basic shape of our foundation laid out, the next thing we want to think about is what materials we're actually building with. One mistake I see a lot of players make is just using one material for the entire base. For example, a full stone base or a full wood base. And while there's nothing technically wrong with that, visually it can end up looking a little bit flat and repetitive. Instead, try mixing up materials together. Some combinations that work well are wood and stone, wood and thatch, and even wood on wood, as long as you flip the walls around so you're using different textures. Let's take a look at this starter cottage. This build actually uses 3 variations of material. We have the darker wood wall at the bottom, the lighter flipped wood above it, and then thatch used for the roof and pillars. By combining those textures together, the build instantly feels more detailed. The same idea applies to this all-in-one stone base. This build is primarily stone, but by adding wood sections, it breaks up that repetitive grey texture. So let's go ahead and add some walls to this foundation. I'm going to place some stone walls along the bottom and wood walls above. Now, when it comes to the wooden walls, you actually have the two textures to choose from. You have the darker outside and the lighter flip side. Which one you use just comes down to personal preference. For the purpose of this video, I'll use one side with the lighter wood and one side with the darker wood so that you can see the difference. Using different materials creates contrast, and that contrast makes your build feel more detailed and intentional. In this case, the stone on the bottom feels strong and structural, like a proper foundation, while the wood above keeps the build looking warm and natural. Doesn't that already look better than just doing the entire build in just wood or stone? Yes, the answer is yes. Now that we've got our walls in place, you'll notice that everything is feeling a little bit flat. Each side of the build is basically just one straight surface. So let's try adding some depth to it. A really easy way to do this is with windows. Most players will simply place a window frame straight into the wall, and actually there's nothing wrong with this. In fact, on smaller builds, that's often your only option. But on larger builds, you can take things a step further by pushing your windows inwards or outwards. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. On this Adobe base, you can see that the windows are actually set into the structure, which creates a recessed effect and adds depth to the wall. And on this all-in-one cabin base, we do the opposite. The windows protrude out from the wall, which creates a really nice layered look. So for this build here, let's add some indented windows. And while we're at it, we'll place a couple of boxes in the front that can act like a little balcony or plant box. And just like that, these walls are looking a lot better. But depth isn't all about the windows, it applies to every part of your build. In fact, it links directly back to our first tip about shape. If we look at my all-in-one tower design, you'll notice that the walls technically go straight up, but by having certain sections come out slightly and then go back in again, it creates the illusion of depth. That simple trick breaks up what could otherwise just be one tall flat structure and makes the whole build feel more dynamic. If you've got an absolute mega base of a structure, then just keep in mind that the depth will need to be exaggerated by quite a lot. For example, in my factory base, you'll notice that I've included more depth than usual. So whenever you're building an ark, try to avoid completely flat surfaces. Even small changes in depth can make a huge difference to how the build looks. Tip number 4 is roof design. When it comes to roofing, there are actually quite a few different directions you can go. You can build a steep roof that goes straight up and down, you could do a much shallower roof using ramps, or you can even create something more rounded. For this particular build, I'm going to do a rounded roof style. The type of roof you choose really depends on the vibe theme you're going with for your build. However, there is one thing that applies for almost every good roof design in ARK, and that is the overhang. A roof that sits perfectly flush with the walls tends to look a little bit flat. By extending the roof slightly past the walls, you'll create a much more natural and finished look. The amount of overhang will usually depend on the size of the build. Larger structures can support bigger overhangs, while smaller builds tend to look better with something a little more subtle. For this build here, I'm going to be using quarter ramps to create a small overhang along the edges. It's also worth remembering the first 3 tips we talked about, because they still apply when building your roof. Shape, material variation, and depth all play a role here. If we take a look at my Viking longhouse, you can see all 3 of those ideas working together. There's variation in materials, plenty of depth throughout the roof structure, and the overall shape of the roof gives the building its iconic silhouette. But even if you keep things simple, just make sure your roof has a bit of an overhang, and that, I promise you, will improve your build tenfold. Tip number 5 is pillars. If there's one thing I've learned building on ARK over the years, it's that pillars are one of the most useful building pieces in the entire game. They're fantastic for turning plain walls into something far more interesting, while also adding a bit of subtle depth and structure to your build. So let's go ahead and add some pillars to this build here. I'm placing them vertically along the walls, almost like structure supports, as well as horizontally. Now, it's important not to overdo this. It's very easy to get carried away and start placing pillars everywhere. Instead, try to think about it like it's a real building. Where would the supports logically go? And always take a moment to step back and look at the build from a distance. Sometimes you'll realize you need more pillars, and sometimes you'll realize you've added too many. Treat your build a bit like a piece of art. Add details, step back, look again, and adjust until it feels right. Now, there are plenty of situations where pillars aren't needed quite as much. For example, my modern ocean base doesn't use vertical pillars across the walls at all, because the clean modern style works much better with smoother surfaces. The same goes for my other modern builds on the channel. Meanwhile, something like my all-in-one stone base uses pillars much more sparingly. It uses it across the structure to break up the stone texture. It really just comes down to your style and personal preference. Tip number 6 is one of my favourite parts of building, and that is dressing the build. Dressing is usually the final layer that turns a good base into something that feels like a completed masterpiece. This mostly involves two things: plants and lighting. When it comes to adding plants, there are two main ways you can do this. The first option is to install a free mod called JVH Landscaping. This adds a small crafting bench that lets you create all kinds of foliage and plants, using just a little bit of fibre or wood. It even includes plants from different maps. Some of my favourites to use are the hanging vines, the Ragnarok vines, and the temperate plants, which are great for adding life around your build. The other method works only if you have the Bob Tall Tales DLC installed. If you have this installed, you can unlock the shovel at level 20 and plant pots at level 31. With the shovel, you can actually go out into the world, dig up bushes, trees or plants, and they will go into your plant pot, and then you can place the pots around your base. It's a really nice way of bringing a bit of the natural world directly into your build. The other really important part of dressing a build is lighting, because let's be honest, it doesn't stay daytime forever in ARK. Lighting is both practical and aesthetic. It helps you see around your base at night, but it also adds atmosphere. You can use things like torches, wall torches, all the lighting from the DLC packs, or modded lighting. So let's go ahead and start dressing this build. We'll begin by adding some plants to these window boxes, which instantly makes the walls feel more alive. I'm going to enclose them slightly using some thatch railings just to frame the plants and add a bit more detail. After that, I'm going to place some lighting in a few key areas around the build. I'm using a modded light here, but you can achieve a very similar effect with the normal wall torches. And just like that, the build already feels more alive. Small details like plants and lighting can elevate your build to a completely different level. So consider doing this to your builds today. Tip number 7 is something a lot of builders forget to do, and that is re-evaluating your build. At this stage, you might be thinking the base is finished, and technically, you could stop here. But whenever I reach this stage of the build, I like to take a step back and ask myself a few questions. Does it look good from every angle? Is anything missing? Does this base have everything I need to survive? And very often when I do this, the answer is yes, something is missing. For example, looking at this gate behind me, it feels a little bit flat. So what I'm thinking to do is add a gate section that protrudes out from the wall, not just on one side but on both sides to give it a bit more depth. This also helps create a more defined entrance area, rather than just a gate flat to the wall. And while we're at it, I'm going to add a greenhouse section at the back, because right now this base is missing the functionality we need to grow crops. I'm also going to add a patio running around the structure, which helps frame the base and makes the whole design feel much more complete. Now, when it comes to the patio, this is a really good opportunity to bring together a lot of the tips we've already talked about. The main ones here are shape and material variation. Instead of placing one big square platform around the build, I've gone for a more rounded shape, which helps soften the overall look and makes the base feel more natural. I've also lined the outside of the stone patio with wood, just to break up that stone texture and add a little more visual contrast. To enclose the space slightly, I'm using thatch railings, which not only make the patio feel safer, but also help define the edge of the build. And while working on the patio, I realised the roofing above was feeling a little bit plain. So I've gone ahead and added a line of pillars along the roof, along with a hanging light, just to bring a bit more detail and atmosphere to that section as well. Because there's always something you can improve or add to take it that little bit further. Tip number 8 is all about the small details that make a difference. Here are quick, simple tricks you can add to any build that instantly make it feel more detailed and lived in. Placing flowers on top of a barrel make for a really nice decoration piece. You can also place them inside a feeding trough. If you don't have access to modded sofas, then you could do this instead. Place down a bench, add some canvas going around the outside of it, and you can make it look like a sofa. Try adding pillars and beams around the frames of your greenhouse windows to make them feel more finished. Props like storage boxes, barrels, beer barrels, large storage boxes, and even cages can be placed together for a decorative storage section. Ladders aren't just functional, they can also be used aesthetically by hanging them down from your ceilings or over pillars. You can use quarter walls and ceilings to make a little bathtub or a little sink. Use skinny pillars to make yourself a pagoda. Then place plants on top to finish the look. You can make a chimney out of quarter stone walls, quarter stone ceiling, and a little pot on top. If you want grass in your build, why not do this? Place down a thatch foundation or thatch ceilings, use your paintbrush or paint gun and paint it the filth colouring. And hey presto, you've got yourself grass or a lawn. And of course, don't be afraid to use a few custom cosmetics. None of these take long to do, but when you combine them together, they can completely transform how your build feels. Tip number 9 is inspiration. If you're struggling with what to build, one of the best things you can do is look at real-world inspiration. A lot of people ask me, Lance, where do you get your ideas from? And honestly, about 80% of the time, they come from real-life examples. If you want to build something like a medieval house, don't just guess, go and search for one. Look it up on Google, scroll through Pinterest, or even look up some movies with medieval builds in. For example, my tower base was actually inspired by an image someone sent me from Pinterest. One of my medieval house builds was influenced by buildings in a village near where I live. And the tiki huts on my ocean base were inspired by beach huts you'd find in places like the Maldives. The key thing here is, you don't have to invent everything from scratch. Some of the best builds come from taking real-world ideas and adapting them into ARK. So next time you're stuck, don't just sit there staring at an empty foundation. Go out, find inspiration, and bring it back into your world. And finally, tip number 10 is a simple one. Have fun. Building an ARK is one of the most enjoyable parts of the game. You can literally create anything your mind can come up with. The only real limit is your imagination. So don't be afraid to experiment, use creative mode to test ideas, try out different shapes, different materials, and different designs. And then take what you've learned and bring it back into your survival worlds. Because at the end of the day, building isn't about being perfect, it's about creating something you enjoy. And who knows, your next build might just be your best one yet. So there you have it, my top 10 tips for building in this world. But the real question is what will you do with this newfound knowledge? Will you step forward and build something incredible, or will you stop before you even begin? Because there is one thing for certain. If you never pick up your hammer, if you're afraid of making mistakes, then you'll never improve. And that is unacceptable. So now the choice is yours. Will you rise up or be left behind by me, the self-proclaimed greatest builder to have ever lived? Listen, I didn't get here by playing it safe. I built, I failed, I rebuilt again and again and again. And every build you've seen on this channel started as something imperfect. So stop waiting for the perfect idea and just start building. So come on, pick up your hammer, stop building boxes, and start building something you're actually proud of. Build bigger, build better, build with purpose, and most importantly, build without fear. Because the only difference between a basic builder and a great one is the decision to try. I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's made it this far, and to those of you who continue to support the channel. It really does mean a lot. If you did enjoy today's video, don't forget to smash that like button, comment down below your favourite tip and trick, and why not subscribe? It's completely free and helps me out a ton. And until next time folks, love you guys to death, and I'll see you in the next video.